Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we will be looking at the menstrual cycle. So let's get straight into the video. So the menstrual cycle is divided into two cycles that run over a 28-day cycle. There is the ovarian cycle as well as the uterine cycle. Now, the ovarian cycle is mainly about the changes that occur in the ovary, while the uterine cycles, these are changes in the uterus. For understanding purposes, I'd say during the ovarian cycle, the mature ovum will be formed and released, and in the uterus or the uterine cycle, it is to make it more vascular, glandular, and thick. Now get your pen and paper ready. We're going to draw the menstrual cycle graph, which involves the ovarian cycle and the uterine cycle, as well as the hormones that are involved. Now let's get to labeling. The bottom part will be the uterine cycle, and then you have the ovarian hormones. So these are hormones that are secreted by the ovary. And then you have the ovarian cycle as well as the pituitary hormones. Those are hormones secreted by the pituitary gland. So these hormones secreted by the pituitary gland are FSH and LH, while progesterone and estrogen are secreted by the ovary. Now let's get straight into analyzing the graph. We'll start from day number 1. We know that menstruation takes place between day 1 and day 7, as shown here. Now, menstruation is taking place because in the previous cycle, fertilization did not occur and progesterone levels dropped. This means that FSH secretion will no longer be inhibited, and then FSH will be secreted by the pituitary gland. And we all know that FSH stands for follicle stimulating hormone. This hormone will stimulate the development of primary follicle into Graafian follicle. So the Graafian follicle will then secrete a hormone which we call estrogen. Estrogen is responsible for thickening the endometrium. It makes it more vascular, more glandular, and more thick. That's just after menstruation has taken place. This is in preparation for implantation of the blastula. Now, this will then stimulate the secretion of LH by the pituitary gland, and this happens directly during day 14. So LH stands for luteinizing hormone, and it is responsible for ovulation. So during day 14, the Graafian follicle is going to rupture, and then it releases a mature ovum. And if a sperm cell is present, then fertilization will take place. LH also stimulates the conversion of a Graafian follicle into a corpus luteum, as shown in the diagram. This corpus luteum will start secreting the hormone progesterone. We see by the increase in progesterone after day 14. And just note that progesterone is an ovarian hormone that maintains the thickness of the endometrium so that implantation of the blastula can take place. Let us say hypothetically fertilization does take place. You will see that the corpus luteum will remain large, or it does not degenerate, and it continues secreting progesterone. I'll highlight here progesterone and FSH. We'll discuss it in the ovarian cycle. So we'll look at the ovarian cycle separately from the whole graph. So during the ovarian cycle, FSH stimulates the development of primary follicle into graphian follicle. Then LH stimulates ovulation, the rupturing of the graphian follicle to release mature ovum, and the conversion of the graphian follicle into a corpus luteum. And then the corpus luteum will secrete progesterone, which will then maintain the thickness of the endometrium, also in preparation for implantation of the blastula. So in this example, our corpus luteum becomes smaller or degenerates, which means that progesterone levels are going to drop. And a drop in progesterone triggers the negative feedback between progesterone and FSH, which means, firstly, menstruation will take place, and then FSH will no longer be inhibited. So there will be an increase in FSH and a new follicle will develop. Now let's get into this past exam paper from last year, 2025. We can see here the diagram below represents parts of the menstrual cycle. Those are events in the ovary, hormone levels in the blood, as well as the lining of the uterus. It is important for you to analyze the diagram so that before you answer questions, you understand already what is going on. So they've highlighted part A, which is the graphian follicle. As well as part B, which is the corpus luteum. Now we also have hormone X. You can see that it increases after day 14, and that means that is progesterone. Other things that we can look at are, for example, between day 0 and day 4, we can see there that menstruation is taking place. And then the mature ovum is released during day 14, and that's ovulation taking place. One thing that is not really mentioned is FSH and LH. It's just not visible in our graph. But we can get into answering the question. 2.2.1, we've already identified part A and part B. So you can move to 2.2.2. It says, according to the diagram above, on which day did ovulation take place? We've identified that as day number 14. The next question, give a visible reason. We can see that the graphian follicle ruptures and releases a mature ovum. So it's important that you can see it from the diagram. As they say, give a visible reason. Now we've already identified hormone X as progesterone. We can go to the next question, which says, explain the influence of hormone X on the uterus between day 14 and day 24. So we can see that progesterone levels are increasing there between those days. And the question says explain, so we need a cause and effect. type of answer. So when progesterone levels increase, they maintain the thickness of the endometrium so that implantation of the blastula can take place. So the first part of our answer is the cause or the what, and then the second part will be the why. So the what would be to maintain the thickness, and the why is implantation of the blastula. So question 2.2.4, we want to know how long menstruation lasted. You can see there it is 4 days. And the last question, to describe the role of FSH in the menstrual cycle. I think we discussed earlier that FSH is follicle stimulating hormone, which stimulates the development of primary follicle into a Graafian follicle.